Hello folks, I'm just doing my pre-show sound and visual check. What you should see now is the countdown timer with me in a little window, and you should be able to hear me. If you can't hear me, please no, hang on, the other way around. If you can hear me, please say so in the live chat, and I'll be back with you at past. See you then. Hello, good evening folks. Welcome to tonight's live stream. Did you see the title sequence stutter? It appeared to stutter at my end. Just as maybe, I'm just curious about what's going on with playing video back. I seem to get the odd stutter since I upgraded the machine. Anyway, welcome to the show. Special tonight, it's all about your images. And it's a show about feedback on your photographs, and as such we've got a slightly different program to normal, which reminds me I haven't updated the slides to say so, but let's move on anyway. For the benefit of anyone who isn't familiar with these shows, if we've got any new people watching live or watching the recorded version, I just need to explain, and I'll do this quickly because I think most people have been watching these for a while now. They are weekly shows that stay on YouTube for a while, and then you get cut down versions on YouTube with highlights on there and full versions in my academy. Do ask questions in chat. I've got 3 sections for live Q&A tonight in there, and if you're watching this on the replay, please put a comment there just so I know you watched it on replay, because that's important. I don't get many comments on them. Yeah, do subscribe if you haven't already done so. Please subscribe to the channel, and then you'll get updates for things happening on there. Comment on the videos, any that you've been watching, so I know you've seen them, and hit the like button. Actually, you're getting quite good at it, folks, because the likes have already got up to 5 even before we started tonight. So the remaining 8 or 9 of you, go on, hit the like button, get it over and done with. I'll stop nagging you then, and do share about the show with other people, because I'm sure this would help other people, but I just seem to have a lot of trouble reaching out and getting that audience built up at the moment. So please do that. Just looking over at the chat window, in answer to my question, a few of you are saying yes, it did stutter. Need to work out why it's I do know why it's doing it. I've just thought. The title sequence is being run off an external drive through a hub. No, it's not through a hub, it's direct. Anyway, it's on the external drive rather than through the, or is it through the hub? I don't know. I need to check where that title sequence video is stored. It should be on the internal drive so that it will run a lot faster. So I'll look into that one. So thank you for noticing it. And I'm being told there are now 10 likes, so you are paying attention. Well done. Well, I've got 9 showing up at my end, but if it's 10 at your end, that's fine. Maybe I've got the delay this time on there. So, yeah, moving on with the show. The Facebook group. I do have a Facebook group which is closely linked to the show, and it's all about. It's really a chance to continue the discussions that we have on a Sunday night. Oh dear, I don't know what day of the week it is. I've not known what day of the week it is since we went into lockdown in March. By the way, are we into April yet? Yeah, it's we've got the Facebook group. I do tend to put things on there ahead of the show, asking people to submit images for critiquing, as we did for tonight's show. I know I've had one person subvids asking about how to submit for tonight. I think it's going to be a little bit tricky to get them in for tonight for you, but do email me the images, and I'll happily do a critique of your images on a future show. or if you want to be part of the 3-minute challenge, we can do that as well. So there's plenty of opportunities to be involved in the show. If you want to email me, it's contact me at ians-studio.co.uk, and that will come through to me, and I can respond to those emails, give you advice on being involved with the various things, or just send me some images saying that you want some feedback on them, and I will do that on a future show for you. On there. Yeah, with the Facebook group though, it's a great place to share your images. I know lots of you are doing that. It's great to see them. I would encourage you to, I'm seeing some improvements, some of you are, but some of you were making the same comments over and over again. So let's start seeing some of those things that we're commenting about taken on board. Sorry, that sounds really harsh. I don't mean it to be, but my aim with this show is to try and help you improve with your photography. So, I mean, for example, there's only so many times I can say about night shots. You all know what I'm going to say if you submit a night shot that's done after the magic hour on there. So let's try and see some done at the right sort of time. I know somebody posted one of a sunset saying that even Ian can't complain about the time on that. So it's great to see that. But I would encourage the rest of you to take it on board, and then maybe once you've had feedback on an image, then with a future one saying, right, I've tried to put in practice what I was told about such and such an image, and keep sharing them on the Facebook group that way, and then we'll all improve with it. So what's okay, I've also got a newsletter on my website, so please sign up for that. What have we got on the show this week? And I didn't do these slides today, I did them all yesterday. I'm trying to remember what I actually put on here. I've got the news section, very short one, and I forgot to update this. So yeah, no, it's all wrong. It's all wrong. We're not doing smoke patterns. We're not doing the 3-minute challenge. We are doing your images, and that's what the whole show is about tonight. And the live Q&A, of course. Right, so what's my news from this week? For those of you who are subscribed to the channel, you will have noticed this week the start of my introduction to DaVinci Resolve videos have been going up there. I've recorded 13 of them. And some of them even have introductions. I had a bit of a sound problem with some of the intros, but we're sorting all that out. There's 5 of them up there at the moment. The aim is that the other 8 should be going up one a day for the next 8 days, to just try and take you from zero knowledge of DaVinci and video editing through to being able to do the essentials, which is basically cut clips together, do transitions, get your sound levels right, and to sort out any one or two little hints and tips I give there about things that you ought to have set up on DaVinci. So if you're into your video editing, do take a look at those, and hopefully you'll find them helpful on that. Kev says that he's been enjoying them. And he downloaded the program this afternoon. Great. I look forward to seeing some of your videos edited then, Kev, in the future. So keep going with that, folks. Right, Q&A. How does the Q&A work? Put your questions in chat, and I'll have a look at them there as we go through. If occasionally I miss them or I can't deal with them on the night, then they'll get postponed to a future week. I've got 2 reasonable sized questions that I've postponed into this week that were asked previously, coming up on there. There is a delay with questions. Actually, I don't think the delay is too bad at the moment. I think we're about 20 seconds delay between me speaking and you hearing me, which isn't bad at all. And Rick saying that he's sat in front of Resolve, maybe he should watch the videos. Yeah, you watch the videos after you've watched this one, Rick. Then I get extra viewing hours on YouTube. No, So don't be tempted to go away now and watch. Right. If you've got questions during the week, do email them through to me. I've had one of the questions tonight came through on email during the week from Terry, I think it was. We'll come to that one in a little while. I've had a question from Peter about sensor cleaning. I'm going to do it next week. I'm now reasonably happy that I can do the second video with the phone after last week's smoke signals, smoke patterns session. So I'll try and do the sensor cleaning as part of next week's show. Because next week's going to be a little bit different again, because I'm going to be issuing a challenge to you next week, so that you're going to have to go off and do some work. I'll give you a couple of weeks to meet the challenge. So that's all coming up next week. But right, that one I will do next week, the sensor cleaning. I'll do a big section about that and things to watch out for and how I do the sensor cleaning and that sort of thing. Right, so the first question I had came in, well, actually, I think it was on last week's show, but I didn't answer it, was from Tim. And he asked about the exposure lock button on the camera. Do you have to find a mid-grey part of the image when using it? Right, the answer to this is yes and no, because it depends how you're using it. Exposure lock does exactly what it says on the tin. It locks the exposure to whatever it works it out to be at that point. So how do you use it? Well, there are times where you might want to just, you know that there's a particular section of the scene that you want to get the exposure right from. So for example, if you've got a person that's backlit, just for the sake of argument, or somebody standing in front of actually a better example is somebody standing in front of a window where you've got a lot of the window frame around them. And you want to make sure that your exposure is just the section within the frame without taking into account the surrounds, because that's the bit you want the exposure to be based on. So one way of using exposure lock is you then just zoom in to frame out the bits you're not interested in, and then press the exposure lock, and then you can reframe the scene with the knowledge that your exposure is based on that section in the middle. Now that would be great with you using evaluative or I think it's pattern on Nikon exposure, and that's one way you would use it. The other way that you use it, and the way I sometimes use it, is using spot metering. Now, if you're using spot metering, yes, you do really need to find a mid-grey tone for it, because spot metering, you've got your, well, usually most people enable the center focus point to be where the exposure is going to be calculated. That's the point. Well, it is that center point where it's being calculated. It's that 1% right in the middle of your frame. So what you would do is you would get that over a mid-grey tone, that 1 point, then hit your exposure lock, then reframe, and then you'd take your shot. So that is probably how most people will use exposure lock, is with mine's gone blank, single point exposure, the 1%. Good grief, mine's going today. Right, never mind, you know what I mean. You get your I said the right words earlier, it's completely gone. I'm blaming Darren Brown. I've been watching videos of Darren Brown today, and he was doing experiments about getting people to forget things. So yeah, right. You know, I think you follow what I mean, Tim. If you don't, put something in the chat. I'll pick it up again later, and I'll try and explain it again when my brain's back in gear. Ah, dear. Right. Okay, so let's move on. Let's head over to Lightroom for this feedback. Let me get that up on my screen and get the right sort of display going. And here we go. We're in Lightroom, and I've pulled in a number of images from people who've posted in the group. I think I got almost everyone in there, but I think there was one or two people I managed to miss, such as I think Bob. I think you submitted something and I didn't get that on there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go through a few people's images, and then we'll come out, do another bit of Q&A, and then come back in and do some more, and that's how we're going to work with it tonight. So I'm going to start off with David Leonard's image. Now, David, I don't know whether you're watching tonight. If you are, spot metering, that's the word. That was the phrase I was trying to get to. Appeared on the screen. Thank you, Tim. David, I don't know whether you're watching tonight or whether you're going to watch this on the replay, but if you are, then do mention in the live chat that you're watching. Let me just sort of tell people a little bit about this this image, and let me get it up as large as I can for you. This image is one that that David has taken. It's his first go with strobes in the studio lights. He's been using always on lights up to this point, and he's had one go with this, and this was the shot he posted, asking for a little bit of feedback from us. And he said himself that he thinks it's night and day between always on lights and using the strobes. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about the difference between always on and strobes later, because we've got some images that Kev has produced using always on lights, and I want to make a few comments about the difference between them when we get to those as well. But what I know from what David said about this image is that he's got one, it was done with one strobe, I believe, which was positioned somewhere behind the camera, and I think there was a bounce card or a reflector in there just to fill a few shadows in. Now, let me go to a different view on this. Yep, into the development. No, let's go have a look. Right, because this was posted to Facebook, I don't have the exposure details on this one. And in fact, I think that's probably going to be the case with most of the ones that we're dealing with tonight. We won't have that information on there, which is a shame, but it is what it is. So let's just have a look at what we've got. Right, we can see, if I zoom in, yeah, we can see where the softbox is. It's more or less central, high up above the camera position on there. Everything's nice and sharp on the shot. I like the pose, the resting the hand on the chin with it. One thing to watch, David, is this edge here, and we're just clipping the edge on there. I would like to see a little bit of space in there so that it's not right up against the edge. I just have this I just have this thing about images being right on the edge of the canvas. It either ought to properly go out of frame, or there be some space in between, rather than it just resting on the edge like that. So think about that. I think you probably just had a grey sheet behind. You can see here that we've got, there are just a few marks on there with that. one way to deal with that is just to bring your subject a little bit further away from the background, so it will go more out of focus. The background will go more out of focus with there. I don't know what, I think you may have said on the Facebook post what aperture you were shooting at, but I can't remember. But in terms of lighting on this, which I think is the key thing that you were asking about, David, is I wouldn't put the light directly behind camera. What I would do is I would move it off to camera right, your subject's left, so it'd be over this side, about 45 degrees coming in from that side, because that allows us to get more definition to this. It's not too bad. You've got shadow, but its shadow tends to be underneath. Whereas if you bring it to the side, you've got sort of sideways shadow. Bring the light up as well, so 45 degrees up, 45 degrees to one side, and then use a reflector to control how much of the shadow area is filled in. And I think that would help improve it. Profile-wise, nice shot. Pose-wise, it's a nice pose. It's a lovely smile on her face and all that sort of thing. And I think for a first attempt using Flash, I think you've done a really good job with it, and I think it's a shot you can be pleased with. And let me just have a look at comments on this. So I have to look at the top screen to see that, whether there's any comments. Yep, no new comments coming in on there. So back to where we were. Right, so hopefully that's covered everything from that one. Let me go on to Gary's images. Now, I know Gary's in there, and we've got several images from Gary. I'm not going to go into detail on all of them. I think with Gary, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go quickly through them and just give you a little bit of feedback on each. Just a few pointers. I think from what I know of your photography, Gary, I don't think I need to go into a huge amount of detail. I think I just need to just give you a few nudges. All your images, as ever, are really good. And what I'm going to pick up on for your stuff is those nitpicks just to take your images on to the next level. So let's just start over with this one, over into develop, and I'm just going to try and get myself a bit more screen real estate for this. Taken in Venice, it was a clown makeup. I love the texture on the face on it, and I think black and white works really well on here. Just a couple of things that I think could work better with it, and that part of it is the framing on here. I think the framing ought to be just a little bit lower down. Hang on a minute, I've just realised something. Just bear with me a moment, folks, because I've forgotten something. I forgot to put the lights on. That's a bit better. I was wondering why my feedback monitor up here was looking a little bit dark. Sorry about that. Yeah, I think the framing should be a little bit tighter at the top. And the flower, I like the flower, but it just looks a little bit odd without the hand in it. So I'd like to have seen a little bit more lower down and less, which would actually then balance out the space up at the top. But without that, I would go with something a bit, perhaps, let's see, well, it looks a little bit tighter on here without the flower, which I think also works. Maybe it's a little bit too tight, but something, yeah, we'll keep the bottom as it is on there, but I think that's a better crop on it without the space at the top. We've got a little bit of space there, and it's all we need. I like the use of a vignette. So if anyone's playing the drinking game of when I talk about vignettes in photos, that's number one. Right. So it's slightly off center. So that's the other thing, is I'd like to see perhaps just a fraction more space on this side. So you could lose a bit here and gain a bit. Not that I can gain a bit on here because I haven't got it in the original photo, but I'd like to see just a little bit more space on that side. It's a minor point on there, but I think that would help that image, Gary. So moving on to the next one. It's actually 3 images to make one. It's 2 images. That one, which looks like something out of H.P. Lovecraft, the Cthulhu series, with the Canal of Venice combined together to create that. And I know from what you posted in Facebook, Gary, that what you're trying to do is learn about compositing. And I think as part of the exercise, you've not done too bad with the compositing side, but I think the choice of images for me doesn't work. The canal scene is a bit of a meh one, to be perfectly honest with you, and the Cthulhu monster, well, it's designed to be seen this way up, not like that. So the perspective doesn't quite work on it. With there, it looks like a painting that's on the ground with it, rather than this 3-dimensional creature. The other thing that I'd like to have seen with something like this, if I just go back to the creature, you see this tentacle, I think it's this tentacle or that one, when it's on the creature. Oh, we've gone too far. Yeah, that one has a loop around, and what would have been good with it is if, and again I can't zoom in more on this because of the resolution that was available on Facebook, but I'd like to have seen that tentacle being wrapped around there as though it's breaking the surface of the water, and that would have helped a little bit with that. But that's much more advanced with compositing to actually put in water effects. And that's the other thing I would have done, is I'm not a great compositor myself. I'd have been looking to get hold of some water texture to go with this under the water, so it looks as though there's movement with it, rather than it just being a mill pond effect on there. So that's my thoughts on that one. This one, again in Venice. I love this shot. That's why I used it on the thumbnail. You know, words are going tonight, aren't they? Really bad. Now, this is my comment about this. The exposure is great, and here's something that really caught my eye on it. It's the eyes on here. Not so much the eyes themselves, but just look at the edge round there. Now, I don't know whether that's makeup or what underneath there, but there's definitely something interesting going on with those eyes. And because of that, I'd like to be able to see a little bit more in there. So I'm going to just try something. And I haven't tried this in advance. I do sometimes play around with images in advance just to see what works, but I haven't tried this. I'd just like to see a bit more light in those eyes. Can I just paint that in? And what I'm doing is I've got the exposure slider, but I've got the flow really low so I can actually paint in with the light on there. And you can see it just gradually coming in on that, and maybe the same on here, rather than it being completely dark in there. So I'd like to see something along those lines with it, just bringing out that little bit more detail in the eyes for it. The other thing I would like to see on here is the crop isn't quite balanced. Now we have bright areas. Bright areas always draw the eye. So much as this is the focus of attention, my eye is getting drawn to this bright area at the top here. Now I know that says Venice, but I think that, and actually just trimming the very top of the mask on there works, because it then balances the image properly, because we've got just the tips of it missing at the bottom, tips missing left and right, and then losing a little bit at the top gives it a better balance as an image on that. Have I got any more of Gary's? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, this is drinking game time number 2, because this is also a vignette, and it was commented on that it was one of my, that it was in, that the vignetting was referencing my my comments about them. I like this. I like the detail on here and the light on these petals, and the split toning on there really does work with it. The toning that you've got. The one thing I would do with it is I want to keep the vignette, but I would come in a bit tighter on it. I think this one, I would say, works a little bit better looking something like that, maybe just a fraction more in with it on there. And I would say something like that, that type of crop with it, I think works better. I think there's too much of a vignette. That's 3 times. Is anyone still sober? Right, we have the vignette's doing its job, it's drawing in, but when there's too much of it, it's doing that thing that it shouldn't do. A vignette should never draw attention to itself. Its job is to draw you into the image, not for you to notice the vignette. So I think that slightly tighter crop is a better one on there for Gary. And then this is a personal nitpick, because the one thing with this that I really don't like is the verticals, and I think I love the black and white translation with it, and that works really well. It just needs one thing doing to it, and it's a single click if you're using Lightroom. It's that, well, double click, and that. Get those fence posts vertical, and then we can see the pattern. Our attention now is better on the pattern with that just as verticals now. Yes, we've lost a little bit at the top there, and we might want to adjust it to be something like that. There's a couple of options on what the crop should look like, or even just down as we had it initially like that. But keep those verticals, because that tilt to it is slightly unsettling, I found, on there. Right, I'm just going to have a look at what's going on in the chat, because I can't see it while you're talking away. Right. Right, let's see. I'm looking right at the top of the screen. Should not be that machine. Almost words. Right. Yeah. No, nothing new in the chat on that. And I'm just going to go over to on my screen on here. Make sure. Yeah, no, nothing new is coming in on there. Right, okay, fine. Let's go back and have a look at the things. Right, John. John posted several images during the week, as he does. So over here, and I really want, at this point, I'm assuming you either watch this on the replay or you are just silent in the chat, because I get the impression you are watching the shows, but you're not. I know you're not typically involved in the chat on there. So let me just say a few words to you, John, about your images and your photographs. I'm very happy with the the numbers of images that you're sharing in the group, but I want to challenge you with the shots for some of them, just to really to see some of the changes. I've said many times, both on the show and in the group, about night shots, and if I go full screen with this one, the Albert Docks, and again, it's difficult for me to comment on the quality and the sharpness and things like that because it's a Facebook image, but again, it's that little bit too late on there, and I'd like to challenge you, John, that next time you post a night shot, try and get it during that magic 20 minutes. It's 20 minutes after the sunset time. It lasts for about 20 minutes and you get that blue sky. Again, this is just that little bit too late on there. And I feel as I've mentioned it a lot, and I just want to push you now to improve your images. And it's great that you're submitting them. It's great that we're seeing them. I just want to see them improve a little bit. And I am seeing some improvements because your next one, this one of the pier, you've been submitting the pier ones, and this is brilliant. I've seen those get better over time, but I want to see the same now with your night shots. And so I'm being a little bit cruel, I know, and I'm being a little bit harsh with you because I want to see you grow with your photography. And this is one of those times where those who know me will know that I'll be honest with my opinions on things. If somebody's new to photography, I'll be gentle. I'll say whether I'll try and be constructive. I'll try and be constructive with everyone. But when somebody is new, I'll start off giving the feedback in a particular way. But when somebody is doing photography a lot, as you are, John, and you're submitting images a lot, I think there comes a time where I've got to start being a little bit harsher and pushing you a bit more now. And I think we're at that stage. You've got some lovely concepts with your photos, and I just want to see you go that next stage with it. And I'm finding it a little bit hard to give you the feedback that I think you need at this point. And that's for a couple of reasons. One is I'm not sure what you're shooting with. Some of the images look as though they might be iPhone or phone camera. And that's fine. If that's what you shoot with, that's great. Just let me know that that's what you're shooting with. And also, I want to know a little bit more about your editing. And I've said this a lot on the live stream and in other places, that there's two sides to photography. There is what we do with the camera, and there's what we do in post-production. And anybody who says that the post-production side isn't real photography is completely wrong. Post-production has always been an important part of photography. Even in the film days, and especially in the film days, people spent a long time in the darkroom perfecting how that image should be finally printed. Well, we don't print as much these days, but we do display on computer screens, and we need to do that side of it. And that's the step I need to encourage you to do, John, to start thinking about your post-production. And I can only really help you with that if I know what tools you have available to you. I don't think you're a Lightroom user, but I don't know whether you have other tools, whether you bring your images onto the computer, whether you're editing them on your phone, on a tablet, or whatever. So let me know more about your setup, and then I can give you some more detailed advice about how to get the best out of your images. Because if you're shooting and you're doing your editing on the phone, that is fine. I can give you the advice that you need on using the tools which are available there, which will improve your photography. And I've seen some improvement over recent weeks, but I want to push you further now. And I think you need to go a bit further than you have been. Maybe taking a few more risks with your photography. But this particular image, the one thing I want to say about it is I love the idea. You pick the right time to get the shot. And I know I was critical of some of the nighttime shots. This one was spot on. But you still have a tendency of bullseyeing your subject, bullseyeing the sun on here. This image, if I can crop it slightly differently, if I just bring things in a little bit more like that, for example, I think that's a stronger composition. What have I done? I've used the third lines. I've put the sun on the third lines rather than the center point, because if I just undo the crop, oops, this area wasn't adding that much to it. Also, I love the reflection, and I love the natural vignette. Yes, I've said it again, down here. I'd be reluctant to lose it, but having the horizon through the middle, it just needs a little bit of work on that. And the easiest way to solve that would be to crouch down, because that will effectively compress all this section here, because you're shooting lower down. You keep the height of the sky in there, and actually at that point you'd be moving the horizon onto the lower third line, and this would become negative space. So you would then end up, and I'm going to fake this slightly because I wouldn't want to lose what's at the bottom, but you'd end up with that sort of thing, but all what you have at the bottom being compressed into this third. And I think that would improve that. So that's the suggestions on there. Let's just move on. What else have we got? Yeah, again, brilliant shot. And this is one where your street photography stuff is coming along, and I'm seeing things improve with that. And I really like this one, but I need to get you to do one other thing with it. And again, it's a really simple thing in Lightroom, and it's simple in other tools as well. But if I don't know what tools you're working with, I can't advise. So for this, you just need to sort out the verticals on it, and that just pushes it to the next level. So if I go to transform, and hopefully auto will do this. Yeah, auto's absolutely spot on with it. Let me go full screen on that. No, full screen. And in fact, I like this one so much that you're going to get to see it proper full screen like that. And I like the Albert and the Lion reference to Blackpool. I like the woman on the edge, and you've broken a rule of composition here and made it work. You've got a looking off frame, and this is one of those times where looking off frame really, really works, because you, as a viewer, we're thinking, what's she looking at? So I'm seeing some improvements, but I think the thing you need to concentrate on overall, John, is the post-production tweaks that are necessary. And let me know what you're working with in post-production, and I can then take you on the next stage with that and help you with that post-production. Let's just see what else we've got of yours. Yes, okay. Very quickly on these. Love the low angle on there. Well done on that. Again, verticals need to be sorted. You could do it by tilting the camera, getting the camera straight at the time of shot, but again, it's a nice bit of street photography on there. This one, I'm going to just talk about this very briefly, because this is actually quite a nice one to show a little technique in Lightroom on. I'll go full screen so people can see it. And this is a little trick that you may not know, Lightroom users, about moving things, because this is a bit too close to the center for me. I'd like to see that person somewhere over there. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to move them. Now, it's really easy to do it in Photoshop, but did you know you can actually still do it in Lightroom? And we still do it with the spot removal tool. So let me get that. I'm not going to go onto them with it. I'm going to go over here where I want them to appear, and I'd like them to appear about here, just off. And now I grab that and just move it until I've got them lined up properly, which is about there. And now what I do is I do a new one just to cover that area and remove them. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to do it slightly off center there. So I'll put it over there. I don't want that. But now I can move that over to delete them from the original location. So we've actually moved someone using the spot removal tool, which I think helps the composition by moving them onto one side. The other thing, again, like the low angle on this, and those use of low angles, that's something where I am seeing a lot of improvement with your work, John. So stick with those. You're making some good choices on that. Again, this was a little bit of a nitpick. It's a question of what do you focus on? You've chosen this rock here as your point of focus for this. I think the rock in front of it would be the more natural one to focus on. And this goes back to what we were talking about with flowerscapes the other week, when I said with flowers, you find your hero. What's going to be your hero, the thing that you actually focus on when you've got something like this? And I think this particular rock would be the natural hero. And I'd even dare to bring the camera down even lower so that you'd have this a bit closer to the horizon on there, but focusing on that rock, I think that will create the better shot with it. Now, there's a little bit of nitpicks on there. It's a good shot, it's a good concept, and I am seeing some improvements, but there's just sort of other areas I really want to push you on with on there. And finally, this image, which again is one John specifically asked for feedback on. There's a couple of things that can be done with this, and a couple of comments about composition. Now, it looks like it's been cropped. I might be wrong because of the aspect ratio on there, but there is a rule with portraiture, is that you try and avoid limbs exiting the frame and coming back in. So I'd like to see a bit more on this side, just so that that arm joins on to the rest of the body. Now, the other thing with this is it does need a bit of work in post-production. And because time's moving on, what I'm going to do, and because I don't know whether you actually use Lightroom or not, I just want to show you what's possible in post-production. I did this earlier, and I've got the settings saved. So this is what it could look like. And you see, what I've done is I've used dehaze just to sort of darken things up. I've brought in a bit more, I've taken the texture down for the skin. I'd probably think about painting some texture in with an adjustment brush, of exposure, and just try and bring some more texture in on the hair. Ooh, I'll bring the flow right up as well. And to do something like that where I've removed it for the skin on there. Maybe even bring it up higher, bring that texture really all the way up there. With something like that, I've also, if I come out of the adjustment brush, I've increased the clarity, and I've really bumped up that contrast because I felt it was a little bit wishy-washy with the colours on there. Now I know that's a particular style thing, and for me it wasn't quite right. The other thing I'd be careful of is this bright area over here drawing you away, and you might be able to sort of just darken that down a little bit, and that might help just a fraction on there. So if we do, nope, I can never remember the shortcut for before and after. There, before and after with it on there. So that's the sort of thing which can be done in post-production on there. Nice pose. Again, I'm struggling a little bit to know where you're at with your photography, John. One thing I would consider doing with this is just to use a little bit of fill-in flash on there, which would just help a little bit, I think, and get you some catch lights. But it needs to be dialed back so that it doesn't overdo it, but it would just give you a couple of nice catch lights in the eyes to think about. Again, it depends what sort of camera you're working with as to whether you can do that. And unfortunately, because this is a Facebook image, I don't have any form of information about what it was shot on to be able to give that sort of advice. Right, let's have a look at the chat, see what's been going on in there. Right, I'm going to, just bear with me folks while I swap a couple of things around on here. Right, I've got the chat in a more sensible place for me. Kev saying it's a bit quiet here. It's not quiet here. Yeah, it's quiet in the chat. Right, Rick's saying, appreciate it may be difficult at the moment, but how about some photo walks in the future? Yes, that's quite interesting that you should say that, Rick. Wait until next week, because I've got something in mind with photo walks. Michael, good idea on photo walks. Trying to organise them in Manchester. Interesting to have a mooch around Stockport for some great shooting locations. I do actually have a photo walk around Stockport that I've done in the past, which might be a good one to bring up again. So that's a possibility. Right, okay, so it's a bit quiet. Right, let's back over to my slides, and there should be another Q&A section. And this one is one from Terry. And let me get the whole question up there. Yep. And Terry's asking about bracketing. Not how to bracket, he knows how to do that. And he's saying that he sometimes does 3 or 5. Just excuse me a moment, folks, I just need a drink. And he's saying that he's getting well, a little bit confused in post-production about which images are the brackets and things like that. And is there any sensible way to organise them and to help the process in post-production? I've got 2 suggestions for you. The first suggestion is one you may have seen when I was doing my tabletop shots of well, I've mentioned it twice now. Once when I did the Dalek tabletop, and once when I did the Cyberman tabletop shots, and I was doing a sequence of shots there. They weren't bracketed for exposure. Effectively, they were bracketed for focus stacking. And what I did, as I started, the first shot I did, I put a finger into the frame and took that, and then I did all my sequence, and then I put 2 fingers into the frame and repeated the last shot, so that I know everything between those are a sequence. And I do that technique sometimes with panoramas when I'm doing individual shots to make up a panorama. So that's the first thing that you can do. And then when you are in Lightroom, as you're looking through the images, you'll be able to see, there's a finger there, everything up to the 2 fingers are all part of that bracketing. Now, that works really well if you're doing manual bracketing. It doesn't work quite so well if you're doing auto bracketing, because you have to do the one shot first, then you have to set auto bracketing, do the sequence, take auto bracketing off and do the one shot at the end with the 2 fingers in. But if you do your bracketing manually and again, people work slightly different ways with their bracketing. I tend to do my normal shot first, and then I go down and then I go up on the exposures to cover everything. But if you remember, before you do the first one in whatever order you do them, that with the finger in there, just as a marker shot. And then once you've got them into Lightroom, this is where the second part of the tip comes in. So what I'm going to do is go back over to Lightroom. Let me get that up on the screen, on my screen, and over here into Lightroom. Right, I'm going to use Michael's, no, it's not Michael's, it's John's images as the example here. And let's assume these were all bracketed shots of the same subject. And what you'd have is perhaps your first one here would be with the fingers in, this one would be with fingers in, so that this, for the sake of argument, this 4 are going to be my my shots, my bracketed shots. So now you can keep those in to help, but what you can do is if I right click on here and go to stacking and then group into stack, that collapses them all, and you can then expand them to see them all, and you can decide as you look through which one of these in Lightroom is the one that you want as your master one. So this one perhaps, and what I can do is I can just pull that up, and now that one is my front image on the stack. So when it's collapsed, I only see whichever one I want. So you just put the one that's the correct exposure on the top of the stack in there. The other thing that you can do, and again, I don't do this one because I use my color labels for lots of other things. But for example, you might decide that anytime you've got a stack, once you've done that, you could say, right, well, those are all a stack, or those are all part of a sequence. I'm going to give them all let's say a blue color label, so that you know then anything that's labeled blue is all part of a sequence. Whether it's a panorama sequence or a bracketing sequence, you can sort of manage them that way to take care of them, to do it. The other thing that you then might want to do is you should be able to see with your EXIF data what the exposures were on there, but you can always, in your comments, you can use a field to actually put something in there. So we could say, this is, actually, I know you're able to, because I know this is Terry, and I know he's able to find all the different fields in the EXIF. I'm going to show him, I'm going to work on a different version of the metadata display, which is my own view. Oh, and what I was looking for isn't actually on there. If I go to, where is it? IPTC, let's go to the whole lot. You could use something like the headline field to say stack, or not stack, focus bracket, exposure bracketing, 3 images, or 3 -3 EV to +3 EV. So you might do that on there, and you've got a little note on your images to know that what it was, what the range was you were working with. And you could do that on a description, you could do it on a caption, or you could choose one of the other fields and make sure that's on display to use to indicate what it's all about. So as soon as you can remember, you've got it noted for the future on there. So hopefully that's answered that question for you, Terry. I'm just going to nip and check the questions on there. Right, Subvid's asking, I don't know if you've done it previously, how about a look at focus stacking? I have done it twice on there. Have a look through the stream. You'll find one in there which is a video called, it's an impromptu live stream, and the thumbnail has a picture of a Dalek on it, and I covered focus stacking on there. And then 3 weeks ago, I had another go with a Cyberman. I did focus stacking on that, and that was done as a live stream as well. So I have actually done it twice in recent months. So go and have a look. Right, okay. Moving on for feedback. Whose have we got next? Right, haha. Kev, your images. Now, Kev sent me 2 images, and for once I've got the EXIF data on here. I've got the behind the scenes images. I've got everything on these 2. Little story behind this. I'm sure Kev won't mind me saying he's recently acquired a new reflector, which is this thing that you can see here. If I go full screen on it, it's a curvy reflector which is designed for portraits, and you can see here he's using it with 3 always on lights. Now, I think I've known you long enough, Kev, to know that you'll take this in the way I intend it, but I'm not a big fan of always on lights for portraiture on there. I know some people do use it. I love them for video. I've got them up here now they're switched on. I love them for that, but I don't like them for portraiture. And I think you've already discovered the primary reason why. The reason is that they are typically most always on LED lights are not going to be bright enough, which means you are going to have to put up your ISO, or you're going to have to shoot at very shallow depths of field. And I like to shoot at f8 for portraiture for multiple reasons. My lenses are at their sharpest there, and I also think for most portraiture that is a really good depth of field to get. You've got everything you need in focus on there. Now, Kev's going to prove me wrong when I look at one of his images, because he's used a very shallow depth of field and he's made it work on there. But I'm still not a fan of using them for that. And I think even with those shallow depth of field, Kev had to put his lights up to his ISO up to 200. And one of the other things that I've seen in comments about, this is, I think it's James who shares the studio with him. He's saying that he was squinting because when he put the lights up to full, they are just insanely bright, which is great for tabletop stuff and inanimate objects, but for people, that is really painful, and people do start to squint, which is why a strobe, in my opinion, is much, much better for portraiture in the studio, because you're not getting people squinting. It's the same as if you're doing shots outside in the sun. People end up squinting and their eyes get tired, and it's not comfortable for your subject, and that doesn't make for good portraits because they're not relaxed on there. So that aside, because the reason I wanted to mention it is because we were talking about always on lights earlier, and I know there may be times when you want to use them, and having said all that, Kev has really made them work here with the images that he's sent. So let me try and, oops, that's not what I was trying to do. let's look at the two images. So first of all, we've got this one. Actually, let me deal with the other one first, because it's the one I've been referring to. This is with the shallow depth of field. And if I zoom in, you see the eye is a tack sharp. The ear, less so. This shows you the depth of field on there. And the hair is well out of focus at the edges on it. So if I have a look, what we'll see, yeah, it's f1.2. And even at f1.2, under those constant lights, Kev is having to shoot at ISO 200. So that's probably because they've been dialed back so that the model's not squinting. So under those circumstances, yes, they're fine, but you try doing f8 with them and you're going to have to push your ISO right up, or you have your model squinting all the time, or your subject squinting. I do like the use of the shallow depth of field with this. You've really made it work, Kev. So it's a great shot. Love the square crop with it as well. That works. Nice angling of the shoulders and looking over. If I've got a criticism of this, and I'm almost slightly reluctant to say this, because it's only ever photographers who pick this up, never your subjects or clients, and that is the catch lights. What we can see there is exactly what we saw on those behind the scenes. We've got the big reflector at the bottom, we've got a panel at the sides and a panel at the top. Yes, what we have got is this view. That's exactly what the model is seeing and exactly what we're seeing in the model's eye in there. And I don't like it as a catch light, to be honest with you. It's distracting. When I look at that image, my first thoughts were, ooh, what's going on with the eyes? It's the same with those circular catch lights, which seem to have been a bit trendy for a while, shooting through ring flash. And yes, I can see the use for them with glamour and for the occasional shot. So it reminded me of that, and I thought it's square and it's not even, and I was focused on those catch lights rather than on the subject. And anything that takes me away from the subject, I feel is something that's not quite right. But the rest of it, I think it's a lovely shot. And I love the background, that natural V word, the vignette on there has worked well with it on there. So well done with that. And I like how you've got brighter on one side, slightly darker on the other. So we've got broad lighting here, so the wider side of the face is lit more than the narrow side on there. So good. Now this one is a slightly deeper depth of field, f4.5. I like the composition. I'm a big fan of this horizontal format for portraits that we've got going on. Oh, didn't mean that. All that. This one. So I really like that. Again, catch lights a little bit distracting. Not quite as much on here. It looks like there's been a lot of skin softening going on, and there's a bit of noise in the in there that could possibly be dealt with. I don't know. Let's have a look. ISO 200. You shouldn't be getting that much noise on there. Oops. With it, which is a bit strange on that. It's sharp. I suspect there's something been going on with the processing on there that I don't know about. Definitely some skin softening going on by the looks of it. Probably using the sort of technique that I've been talking about, where you go in one direction and then bring back the detail where you need it elsewhere, I would guess. Oh, I'm having trouble with my fingers tonight on this. Let's go back develop module with that. That's what I want. I think we could do a little bit of noise reduction on here. Let's find where that noisy area is. A bit over here. Probably doesn't need much on it, to be honest, with that noise reduction. It doesn't need lumen. It needs just a little bit of lumens, not the colour. And I think that's about all we need. If I hold the Alt key down, we can see a little bit better. Now, I'm just going to go full screen, if I can do this correctly. There we go. So hopefully you've got a better chance of seeing how that noise has gone. So if I turn that off, it's quite subtle, but you can see it round the ear, how it's just done a little bit on there. I can see you've already sharpened it. I'm not going to try resharpening it on there. But nice shot. I'm not so sure about the hand, this underneath. It looks as though he's just about to form a fist on there. So I just not sure about that. I think I'd prefer, if the hand was going to be in there, I'd probably just have it just gently touching under the chin rather than just below it on there, or probably lose it altogether. I'm not sure it needs the hand in there on that shot with it, or find something for her to do with the hand. She's got a necklace on. Yeah, she's got a necklace on. Maybe just sort of holding that, which gives a reason for the hand to be there. Yeah, that's just a thought on there. So let's move on. We've got a couple more to do. We've got this grass one from Peter. Not really got a lot to say about this one, to be honest, Peter. Do like it. Like the way you've isolated just one item. Can't say whether it's truly sharp, because I'm only working off the Facebook resolution image on there. I do wonder whether a slightly tighter crop with it, maybe something like that. I don't know, maybe a little bit more down. Possibly, not sure, to be honest, on that one. With there, love the bokeh effect. Like the fact that you've isolated just one blade of grass seed on there. Wish I knew more about the settings on it, to be honest. So thanks for sharing it. I haven't really got much more to say on that one, Peter. But nice shot. Just going to have a look at the chat, see what's been going on there while I've been talking. Oh, lots from Kev. So I'm just going to change my view so I can read things a little bit easier. Right. Terry's saying it helps with the keys expanding and shrinking back. Yeah, Kev's saying his reflector was a lot bigger than he expected. 4,000 LEDs. Wow. His lowest ISO was 200. Oh, he couldn't go any lower anyway. Right. Walter asking the question: Are you able to shape continuous lights in the same way you can shape strobes? Depends on the type of continuous light that you're working with. What Kev's working with is panels, so they're the equivalent of your softboxes. So you can do certain things. You can feather them off at the edges. The main things on there. They're much harder to get a harsh light with. The only way you'd have to pull them further back. I think there are some which you can get which are a much narrower section on there, but I'm not a big user of them for that anyway. Kev saying, yeah, he's on a tripod so he can go slower shutter speed. Yeah, fair point with that. Yeah, Kev saying he does a lot of shooting with the ring flash as well. So yeah, you're going to get that circular catch lights on there. Kevin was saying the skin was a bit blotchy, and that's because he was removing wisps of hair and skin softening. And that he said he wasn't sure about the hand either, and that the hand was missing from other shots. Right. Yeah, and talking about the continuous lights, a lot easier with flat panels than anything else on there. So that, I think, has caught up on the chat with that. So let me get back over to Lightroom. Where am I? Oh, I'll do it down here first. Too many things to try and think about. People tend to think that doing live streams is easy. It's not. It's like doing the old tapping your head and rubbing your tum at the same time, and then having to recite Shakespeare while you're doing it. That's how I liken doing a live stream, because I've got to talk to you, I've got to keep talking whilst trying to think about what I'm doing on here, watching the chat coming in and all that, and trying to be coherent at the same time. It's a wonder I managed to string two oh dear, I would have to trip up over on that one, wouldn't I? It's a wonder that I managed to string together two coherent sentences at any one time. Right, let's carry on with the feedback. We're getting towards the end now. I've got some from Stuart. Yeah, I don't know whether you're on the live feed tonight, Stuart. I hope you managed to catch this on replay. If you're not, I'm going to quickly go through these. Again, Stuart's one of those photographers who's quite experienced, so I'm going to pick you up on things perhaps I wouldn't pick up a beginner on. So I'm going to push you to the next level with these. They're quite, some of them are minor, but I want to just keep pushing you. I think that's where you're at the moment. So let's have a look at this one. If I go full screen with it, and I'm trying to zoom out on it. It's not letting me. Oh, come on. Fit, not fill. That's what I want on there. Right, so there's the full image, and there you can see it. Looks like face paint shot, sort of phantom skeleton sort of look on there. Nicely done, actually. I like the blue light in the background on there. Nicely done with the lighting on it. Reasonably sharp. The hair isn't as sharp as I would like on there for some reason. Let's have a look at the data on this. ISO 400. Right. At f4, yeah. What lens is it? It's prime lens, f4. It doesn't look as sharp as I would have expected on the face, and particularly the hair with this shot. Other things, the dress not too bad. So I don't know whether that's just because you haven't sharpened it, Stuart, or whether it was just slightly out of focus on there. Certainly not camera shake at the speeds you're shooting at, or shouldn't be. So I suspect a combination of ISO and noise reduction on there, giving it a bit of a softened look on it. When you do your noise reduction, why does that go to that view when I try to zoom out? Anyway, I think I need to check my shortcut keys in Lightroom. I suspect it's noise reduction that's done it on there. So I would just question why you're shooting at ISO 400 on that to get that. I'm assuming it's all lit with strobes rather than constant light on there. Other than that, a nice shot. This one, I love the pose with it. I love the composition on it. The only issue I have, and I'm hoping this is going to punch in because that is soft. That is so soft on there. Are we sharp on it? No, it's not. I don't know whether there's an issue with this. Let's have a look at the EXIF data on it. 160th of a second, f8, 35mm. That can't be right. Right, okay. Right, Stuart, there's something really weird with this file. If we look at the dimensions on this file, it's 14,000 pixels. I think when this was exported from Lightroom or whatever editing program you use, I'm assuming it's Lightroom, then you've set the dimensions wrong because I don't believe a D750 produces images of 14,000 pixels, which explains why it doesn't look sharp at that. So now I've got to zoom out somehow. I think it is, as its native resolution, tack sharp, but the exported file is odd. So I presume it's tack sharp. If it is, it's a really good image. The only thing I would say about it, and this is a nitpick, is the arm being a little bit close to the top there. It's fine as a digital image, although personally I prefer to see a little bit more space because I'd like it to balance with the gap on this side and the gap with the elbow there. So I'd like to see a similar sort of gap up here. But if you were to print that, because of the bleed on the print, that elbow would almost certainly be resting right on the edge of your print, which would look, to be honest, quite poor on there, which is a shame because it's a great shot. Lit from above, and I think I can see a reflector in there. And unfortunately, I can zoom. I've got a scrubby zoom on here. So if that was probably, something like that was probably full resolution on there, in which case, yeah, I think the original was tack sharp. But yeah, it's Beauty Dish lighting. Beauty Dish directly up above with a reflector below by the looks of it. And that is, as I say, stunning image. Well done, Stuart. Hope that helps. This one, I love the split tone. Now that's the resolution I would expect to get out of it, out of that camera. So, except now I can't get the right. That's me 1:1. Yeah, lovely tack sharp image. Love the that slightly desaturated look. Excuse me again, folks. That that desaturated look with it. Lovely pose, looking off camera. The only thing, and this is a nitpick, is just a tighter crop. And keeping the aspect ratio, I would just bring that in to about there, maybe just slightly higher. Would be something like that, I would say, is a slightly better crop on it. I could see why you might leave the white space there if you were planning to use it as a magazine cover or something like that, then you might need that space. But to be honest, if you were doing something like that, you'd just extend the white space that you already got and you grow that to give you that extra space there. So I would just come in a little bit tighter, either in post-production or preferably in camera when it was created. But lovely desaturated look. I think that's what really makes it. And the lighting as well, everything on that, absolutely spot on with it. Now, this one, let's bring up the data on there. 1/5 of a second, f4.5, ISO 200. I am guessing this was shot with available light or a lack of available light. The problem is, unfortunately, that at 1/5 of a second, it's just not sharp. There's camera shake on there. You can see it very clearly down the neck here, that double shadow there on there, and everything is just not sharp on that. Combined with that is the fact that the camera's not straight either. It really needs, if I give it the tilt round that it ought to have, undo there, it really ought to be something like that to straighten it up, and then it's underexposed as well. Now I know there's a style that goes for that underexposure, and personally I don't like it. I much prefer to bring up, if this was sharp now, I would be processing it a little bit more like that and trying to bring in a little bit more clarity, just a hint of clarity in there. And that, I would say, if it had been sharp, would have been quite a nice black and white portrait. But the fact that it is so, there's so much camera shake on there, I'm afraid that I would confine that one to the rejects bin. Sorry, Stuart, on that. So that's that. And we've got one more, which is this one. And again, it's that desaturated look. I need to sort out those shortcut keys on here. It's that desaturated look, that split-toned look on there, which I do like. It's just the pose looks a little awkward. It's no offense to the model if ever you see this, but it does look a little bit sort of Quasimodo with the shoulder right up. So I would just get your subject to relax on there and not to lean in with the head over quite as much. Straighten the head, relax the shoulders on there, and you would have had a nice shot. Is it sharp? Fairly sharp. A little bit of over sharpening in post-production, I would say, as well with that. Actually, yeah, no, that is 1:1. Again, this is the same. I don't know whether that's come out at twice resolution, those dimensions on there. So you see, it's 6,000. I don't know with that particular camera whether it looks as though I'm zoomed in too far with it, either that or it's over sharpened. There's something odd with that one as well, but I think the pose needs a little bit of work on there, Stuart. So hope that's okay. Hope that's helpful to you with that. So I've got one final image to do in the feedback section. And I know he's been waiting for this all along, Tim. And this is an interesting shot because let me tell you a little bit of a story behind all this. I've been spending some time mentoring Tim as part of my academy program, and I do the mentoring as part of that. And we talked about this particular shoot that Tim was going to be doing, and he'd shown me some images that had been taken there before. In fact, he was going back and he was doing some work on there. So I knew some of that, and I tried to give a few hints and tips on what he might want to do with the shot. And the first thing I want to show you is Tim's final image from it. So if I go full screen and like that, so you can see the whole thing. And this is the shot with the model there at the piano. And I think Tim's done a pretty good job with it. There are a few things I would change, Tim, which I think we can improve on this. And I know you've already done a lot of work on this shot, because if I go over to the original unedited file, this is the unedited one. And what you can see here is there's a bottle sticking in at the bottom that has been removed. You'll see with the exposure right up at the top, the background's a little bit bright on there, and the subject's face is a little bit bright. So I can see how Tim's brought that back in post-production, which is a good move on there with that. And also this light, which I think must be outside, has been removed in post-production. That's gone. So some nice work has been done there. But I'm going to just take this into the edit, and I just want to go through a couple of extra things that could be done with this. The first thing is, and this is getting to be this is getting to be drinking game number 2 about corrected verticals rather than vignettes. That I think with this shot, this would really benefit from having the verticals corrected, because you can see we've just got this triangle of white here and a triangle of white there. So let's just go over to transform, and I'll go full screen. And if I go auto, let's see what auto gives us. Now, auto's done a pretty reasonable job. It's not perfect by any means, but we can just add a little bit more on there just to sort that out, to sort it. Now, the problem we've got is down here, in that automatically it's cropped at the beginning. Now we can use the scale function, just pull that in to get that bottom section in there. Now, there is I know from having seen photos of the location, from when I've talked with Tim on this, that the piano and the model are slightly raised up from the area where Tim's shooting. And that is what we could see at the bottom there. So we've got this slightly low perspective on there. I think we need to just, obviously we need to get rid of that triangle on there. Oh, let me unlock that. I can bring that back down and then bring that in over there. So that would be the first thing I would do with it. The next thing I would do is I would try and reposition the 2 guitars. Okay, let's go in. Those guitars, I don't like the fact that they're cutting out of the frame. And what I would be tempted to do, with the permission of the location where you're shooting, is to move them over to this area where we could use them to actually hide a plug socket. So we've actually done 2 things. We've put them into the frame, we've put them behind something, because one of the things that is always good to do is to try and elements of an image for them to overlap rather than to be completely separate. So if you put them behind here, I think that would also work with them, and it allows us then really to sort of come in a little bit tighter on this side as well. And if there is more over this side to be had, we could actually have a bit more space over on this side of the image with it on there. The final thing I would do, I know you've done a lot with the exposure on this, Tim, but I would actually be tempted just to bring things up very, very slightly. And you can see, I think it's probably just about 1/3 of a stop extra that it needs on the whole image with that. So it's very subtle, but I think it just needs that. Now, what I don't know with this, because I haven't done a vignette on anything, I've mentioned vignettes a few times, but I haven't done one. I'm just going to see what happens, and I haven't tried this beforehand, with just that little subtle vignette in there. And right, I'm going to do my vignettes the same way as I normally do, and that is to bring them in way too far, then use the feather to feather it out. So one way goes very harsh, the other way goes very soft. I think that's nice and soft on there. And now I'm going to have to, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to not look at my controls. I'm going to put my hand over the control there. Once I've got I'm going to put the mouse on the amount there. I'm going to hide that so I don't know how far that's actually going. And I'm just going to bring that vignette back until I can barely see it. And I think it's about there. And surprisingly, that's still minus 42. And the reason I do my vignettes that way is, excuse me, is because we don't want the vignette to be visible. The job of the vignette, as I said earlier, is to draw focus into the middle. So I would do something like that. And what effect does it have? That's without, that's with. And I think that just draws us in very subtly to our subject there. So I would do that with it on there. But overall, it's a nice shot. I want to just try and see. Oh, we haven't got the resolution. Have we got the resolution on here? Let me go to one of the others. I just want to check the... Right, that's the raw file. I just want to see how sharp it is on the original. Right, and let's go and have a look at the data on here. Just a couple of things. Right. f2.8 at 28mm on what lens? Right, okay. Yeah, the noise in there. Now, I suspect we could get rid of some of that with noise reduction, but this is the problem of shooting at ISO 800. To my mind, for a portrait, that's a little bit too high, because what we've lost is the detail in the hair. You can't see, apart from that one up there, we can't see the individual strands. Let's just go back to the edited version. And I can't zoom in on the edited version to see whether you've done noise reduction or not on that. But on the original, I don't know how much we could do on there, but the noise reduction will lose some of that detail. And as much as I'd love to, we're not going to get it all back on that. So I would say the other, I'm trying to work out, it's going to be on here somewhere. Yeah, 24 to 70, f2.8. That should be really sharp. I suspect it's the ISO that's losing the sharpness on there for you, Tim. So I would try not to shoot at 800 for a portrait. 200, 400 if I had to, but I would hate shooting at 400. I can see lighting wise, you've got one light central. It's almost as though it's coming straight forward from the direction of the camera with that. As we've got a shadow over there. No, it must be off on this side looking at it. Which I would try to get the light in from this side, coming in to her face this way, rather than across there, looking at where the shadow is. So it's just slightly off camera. So I would work on that basis with it. Probably need several lights for that room, which I think was one of the things I said when we were talking about it before you did the shoot, that you need to do. And possibly The other thing would be a drag the shutter technique on it, maybe. Yeah, a lot of that, I'm afraid, is just off the top of my head, the things that I hadn't spotted when I first looked at it. So let me head over and have a look what's in chat, because I bet Tim's put something in there on that. And over here, I can see it a little bit easier. I'm not straining my neck. Right. Okay, whoa, right, we've got various comments on here now. Oh, Stuart is lurking in the background, yes. He's using smoke as well, yeah. The original is pin sharp, right, okay. Yeah, various conversation points on there. Comments useful, right, yeah, good. That's one from last year. I didn't realise we were doing Van Gogh or Van Gogh. Right, yeah, nice use of vignette from Subvids. He liked it even heavier. Yeah, and Rick saying 2 lights with shutter drag for that scene. Yeah, that's it to match the practical lights. Yep, very much that sort of thing with it on there. Right, so I hope that feedback you found helpful. I'm going to head over back to my PowerPoints, and we've done that. Finally, anything new in chat for questions? I don't think there has been. So that just brings me to the end. And this one really has gone on a long time. I'm sorry it's been a bit of a long one. I hope, I thank you all for sticking with it. I hope you found it helpful. I'm glad I did drop the 3-minute edits on there. We'd never have had time to do that. So thanks to everyone who's taken part and for letting me loose on your images. My usual plea at this point, if you've got this far and you haven't subscribed, go and hit the subscribe button and do comment if you're watching on the replay, and like. Right, next week, let me just tell you a little bit about what I've got planned next week, because I'm doing something a little bit different. I'm going to issue you guys with a challenge. It's my 12020 challenge. Now, I normally do this as a sort of photo walk or a photo meetup. Now, at the moment, we can't do meetups of more than 6 people, even outside, certainly not in Greater Manchester anyway, because of the COVID restrictions. So I'm going to set you a challenge, which is a virtual meetup, where you're going to be sent out to make some photos with some very particular restraints on there. And I'll introduce it next week. I'll show you an example of when I did the challenge. And there's a couple of people on here who already know what my 12020 challenge is all about. I think Kev has done it before. I might be wrong there, but I have a feeling Kev's one of the people who's done it. So I'll talk about that next week and get you going on that. And you'll basically have, about 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks to actually complete the challenge for those of you who are up to it. And then we'll come back to it a few weeks later, and I'll show the end results for what you've been doing. Yep, and Kev confirms that yes, he has done my 12020 challenge before. I'm also going to do the lens cleaning next week. Not lens cleaning. Well, I'll do lens cleaning as well. What I mean is sensor cleaning, but I'll cover lens cleaning as well. But I'll cover all of that, basic cleaning next week. So what about the Facebook group? Because I like to have a theme for that, and none of these sort of will tie in particularly with the theme. So I'm going to give you a completely off-the-wall theme in the sense that it's not connected with what I'm going to talk about, but I will share on the stream next week any summer themed images. So if you've got any images which are on a summer theme, do share them on the Facebook group, and I'll do one of my quick comment flyby feedback sessions next week on those. I share a few of them and make a few quick observations. Nothing as in depth as I've done tonight, so I'll just the way I normally just highlight a few images and make a couple of comments on them. So I'll do that next week. So hopefully that will be, Subvibs says 20 photos at 1:20 p.m. No, it's not that. It's not that. You'll have to come back next week and I will explain what it all is. So until then, folks, my usual thing of thanks for watching and keep making great photos, and I'll see you all again next Sunday. Bye for now. Right, time for the cut down alternative ending, which I shall do now. Thanks for watching this cut down version of Ian's Studio Live. The full version now is in my Academy. If you want to join the Academy, the details are over my shoulder. It's only £6 a month or £60 a year. Great value, lots of other resources in there to help you with your photography. Now, I will be posting other bits of this on the YouTube channel, so keep tuned into that. Make sure you subscribe to it, and I'll see you next time. And until then, keep making great photos. Bye for now.